Hey, what's happening YouTube, and thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're thinking about moving down to Charleston, South Carolina. Probably about 7 years ago, my folks moved down to Charleston. I wound up spending a lot of time down there, very seriously considered moving down there. And while I never necessarily wound up making the permanent move, I did spend, weeks and even months at a time down there. And here we are a couple years fast forward, and I'm thinking about moving down there. I'm not an expert on the Charleston area. I'm not a local, but I think that may be helpful because with Charleston, because of all the growth, there's starting to be kind of an anti-outsider sentiment. So a lot of people, when you ask about like, oh, should I move to Charleston or what's a good area, people are like, move to Ohio. We don't want you here. Like there's a lot of that kind of attitude starting to kick in. I think there's always been a little bit of a northerner, southerner, like northerners aren't quite as welcome down there. I mean, not to the point that it's going to greatly affect your life, but when you're hunting for jobs and things like that, a local probably will get a job ahead of you in a lot of instances. There's a lot of business and a lot of industry moving down there, so there's great job opportunities. A lot of people are moving down there. Companies and manufacturers and employers who want educated, young, smart, hardworking employees are moving to the area. And so it's kind of both those things are moving down there. My folks actually recently wound up moving back up to the Chicagoland area, and there's like a huge mass migration moving down to the south. A lot of people from northern states, New York, Chicago, even the West Coast, are moving down to the south and southeast. And actually, when my folks rented a truck to come back up to Chicago, normally you got to pay like $39 for the truck plus 99 cents a mile. They actually gave my parents free mileage, which was like $800 or $900 worth of value, because they had so many more trucks going from the north down to the south than they did going back up. They really needed to get trucks back up to Chicago and the north. So that just kind of shows you how many people are moving down there, and it's caused the real estate prices to really kind of go insane and go through the roof. One reason that I was really thinking about moving down to Charleston, I mean, there's a ton of great stuff about the area. Awesome food. I love that the restaurants and bars and shops are more kind of unique mom and pop shops, and it's not all, chain stuff and Mongolian barbecue and Chipotle and McDonald's and all that. The weather's fantastic. The food is great. They got a great music scene. It's a little bit of a slower pace of life. Great beaches, a lot of good outdoor activities. I love everything about the area. One thing that really did kind of appeal to me about Charleston was that the cost of living at the time I first started looking at it was, I don't know if I'd say significantly, but it was decently cheaper than Chicago. Now, Chicago's not as bad as New York or LA, but it is one of the higher cost of living places in the country. It's a bargain for being a bigger city, but it is more expensive. And Charleston, I noticed, was significantly cheaper than that. Property tax is definitely cheaper, but over the past few years, with real estate prices going up, you're really not going to be able to buy that much more home down in the Charleston area than you will in Chicago. One other interesting thing about the Charleston area, well, they are starting to experience sprawl, and we're going to get into talking about the different areas and the different islands and kind of feels and vibes of them. Because Charleston is just built on marshland, and you got the ocean and the waterways, and just kind of because of the geographical nature of Charleston, they can't really experience sprawl like other areas. So I'm from Chicago. Obviously, in Chicago, you have like the inner ring suburbs, and then they kept expanding out and out and out. And, before you knew it, things like, for anyone who's familiar with the area, Plainfield, Illinois, or Oswego, the suburbs have started going out to the point where you're like 40 miles outside of Chicago. Now, one of the things I always thought was cool about Charleston is even if you're in the suburbs, and by suburbs we normally mean like neighboring islands or peninsulas, even if you're in the suburbs, in the past you were only, a 10-minute drive to get downtown Charleston. Well, because of all the expansion and all the traffic, and because their infrastructure hasn't really caught up with all the people moving down there, the traffic can be horrible, especially on the bridges, and it's getting to the point where traffic is getting pretty bad. But now it's nothing in comparison to like Atlanta or Chicago or California or anything else like that, but it is getting worse, and it's only going to continue to get worse. So, and I think that's where some of this anti-outsider sentiment is coming from. Like people are being priced out of their own home, their own city, etc. Traffic is getting worse, and to some extent, it kind of changes the vibe or the nature of the area. One other thing that's kind of interesting about this is because Charleston can't really experience sprawl, everything can really only go north into the mainland. So you're talking about like Goose Creek, Somerville, towns like that. I'm not really that familiar with that area. And if you just want to be in South Carolina and you want to be relatively close to Charleston and the beach, well, I suppose Somerville, if that's all your budget will afford, I suppose it's not a bad option. But keep in mind, living in Somerville would be like living in like a Chicago suburb 45 minutes or an hour outside of Chicago, where, yeah, you can make it to Chicago to go see a ball game or whatever else, but it's not like you can hop on a road and 10 minutes later you're down at Lake Michigan or you're down at the Sears Tower or whatever else. So if you move to that area, expect like, a 45-minute to hour-long commute, either into work in downtown Charleston or Mount Pleasant or Daniel Island, or even if you want to go to the beach and stuff like that, it's going to be more of a drive. Now, let's talk about some of like the islands and the areas. So we'll start kind of from the right and move over to the left. I don't really have a map pulled up. I don't know if you guys can see. Anyhow, you guys can pull up a map and kind of follow along. So first we have Isle of Palms. Well, Isle of Palms is an island. Very few people live there. It's kind of more their little kind of like beach community. Very nice, awesome beaches out there. Some decent, not the best food around, but some decent bars and restaurants. And my folks lived on Daniel Island, so I would hop over to Mount Pleasant and then down to Isle of Palms. Now, unless you're looking for a beach house or unless you have a lot of money, you're probably not going to be living on Isle of Palms. But if you like the beach, you may want to try to live near Isle of Palms. To the left of Isle of Palms and just below Mount Pleasant, we have Sullivan's Island. Sullivan's Island, very, very nice, but very, very ritzy. So unless you're looking at houses, I would say $500,000 and up, and probably closer to that $1 million range, you're probably not going to be on Sullivan's Island, but super, super nice area. It's like the, what's that area in Connecticut that everyone goes? The Hamptons. It's basically like the Hamptons of South Carolina. Above that, you have Mount Pleasant. Now, a couple years ago, I was looking at Mount Pleasant. I think Mount Pleasant was recently rated like the number one city in the country to live. And it's always been a little bit more expensive. Back when I first started looking, single-family homes were still pretty affordable, like cheaper than something in the nicer Chicago suburbs. Over the past couple years, Mount Pleasant real estate has gone insane. I mean, this is anecdotal. I'm not sure, like, statistically what the price of real estate has gone up, but I have seen a lot of stuff nearly double. I may not be looking at exact perfect comps. Maybe one place had one more bedroom or a little bit of extra square footage. But I've seen the prices almost double in Mount Pleasant, James Island, a lot of other areas. I think James Island, which we'll talk about in a minute, recently, I think just within the past year, if not even just this year, real estate's gone up about 22%. Mount Pleasant, awesome. Tons of dining options. Shem Creek is over there. It's an area with a lot of bars and restaurants. If you like paddleboarding or kayaking, you can dump in over there and kind of go through some of the waterways. A lot of cute little like mom and pop coffee shops and restaurants, and some of my favorite restaurant shops. Everything else is over in that area. Very nice homes, very nice area, good schools. I would love to be on Mount Pleasant, but I think I may personally be priced out of Mount Pleasant. And excuse me. That brings me to another thing. When my folks first moved to Charleston area, I was like, I should buy a condo down there, and rather than my parents renting an apartment, they can rent a condo from me. Now, initially they planned on staying down there for 2 years. They wound up staying down about 7. My grandparents are getting older. They wanted them back, so my folks moved back. I wouldn't be surprised if my folks wind up moving back down there. And if my folks were still living there, I probably personally would have made the move. I am going to try to make the move back down there in the next year. I love everything about the area. I'd like to move down there before I'm priced out of the area. I think maybe Mount Pleasant might be out for me. I'll probably wind up going over to James Island or possibly even John's Island. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But Mount Pleasant is just, I like the feel of it. I like the vibe. It reminds me kind of the Chicago suburbs, but cooler and nicer. That would be my ideal area to live, but, probably won't wind up working out for me. Next, we have Daniel Island. Daniel Island's only been around for the past 20, 25 years. I believe it used to be like cattle farms and marshes. It's turned into Blackbaud, big like charity fundraising companies over there. I think Boeing may have a presence there. Very much so a planned community, right? Like, there's not a whole lot going on Daniel Island with the exception of 1 or 2 employers. Not a whole lot of stuff to do there. Most people who work there, unless they work for one of these 1 or 2 or 3 employers, are going to have to go off the island. Blackbaud does have a cool tennis stadium where they have tennis matches and they have a lot of concerts. The Zach Brown Band music festival is down there. I believe it's like a music festival slash like food festival, food trucks and things like that. That's down there. A lot of great concerts. Darius Rucker, I saw him play there a while back. Daniel Island, they do have some townhomes and single-family homes. It's a lot of condos. And on the northern end of Daniel Island, there's still some cheap real estate, but you're way far away from everything. The problem with Daniel Island is it's so small that it really can't support a lot of businesses. So they really don't have a coffee shop. There's no fast food on Daniel Island. There's only a handful of gas stations. They do have a Publix grocery store, but for most intents and purposes, if you want to go out to dinner anywhere you want to go, you're going to have to go off of Daniel Island. Now, geographically, most stuff isn't that far away from Daniel Island, but because of the traffic on the bridges and things like that, it can take a while to get anywhere. Now, pretty much one thing that kind of surprised me being an outsider, almost everywhere you go, you're going to have to hop on a bridge. So, you know, Mount Pleasant is like its own island. Isle of Palms is its own island. Sullivan's Island is an island. Daniel Island is technically a peninsula. Then you have Charleston. Then you have James Island. And then you have like Johns Island, Kiowa Island. But pretty much like if you're wanting to go somewhere that's not directly local, you're always having to hop on a bridge. I want to say it's called 526, and it does a big loop around the islands. We'll hop over and start talking about Charleston. Charleston is the Charleston that you see the pictures of. It's where, the Citadel is. Awesome restaurant. You got King Street. You got nightlife. You got bars. You got tons to do. Charleston can be a little bit sketchy. I mean, like a lot of major cities, like you'll have one nice area, and in a block over, it can get really sketchy and really ghetto. The homes tend to be older. Obviously, Charleston goes back to, the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. I should know my Charleston history a little bit better. Awesome history, awesome restaurants, awesome bars, awesome nightlife, awesome views of the Sound or whatever that waterway is off that leads to the ocean. Awesome views there. Charleston's really cool, very congested. It kind of reminds me of New Orleans in terms of there's not a lot of parking. Garbage kind of goes out on the street. Not a great place to really own a car unless you're planning on going off the island, but it is congested. Parking's expensive. It's like most major cities. Charleston's very cool. If you're younger, you want to be in the middle of things. You maybe work downtown, could be a cool place to live. For me personally, I don't really like really congested urban areas, so for me, it'd probably be something else. One thing I really like about Charleston, though the traffic and things are starting to get worse. I mean, if you live on James Island or Mount Pleasant, it's not like going from the Chicago suburbs 45 minutes into the city. I mean, without traffic, 10, 15 minutes, you can be out at the beach or downtown Charleston, whatever else. North of Charleston, you have North Charleston. Now, North Charleston in the past had a bit of a sketchy reputation. There still are sketchy areas. It's getting a little bit nicer. You're getting a lot of development happening over there. When me and my girlfriend took a ride out there, there's some really nice areas, and then you'll go by gun shop, liquor store, payday loan, Obama liquor store. I don't know why there's a lot of Obama business. Obama liquor store, Obama convenience store, Obama gun shop. North Charleston, you're a little bit further away from the action, but not nearly as far as Somerville and stuff like that. To the west of Charleston and North Charleston, there's an area called West Ashley. West Ashley is kind of a hipper place. I see a lot of jokes about yes, West Ashley will smell like weed smoke for the next 10 years. Sort of hipsterish, younger, very, very cool area. Nice homes, cool area. You're a little bit further from the beaches and things like that than say you would be at Mount Pleasant jumping down to Isle of Palms. But West Ashley isn't that far from Folly Beach. A lot of great restaurants, nightlife, all that type of jazz. And West Ashley is kind of a part of James Island. Now, James Island, more affordable. It's getting very expensive. It used to be when I searched on there, you could find single-family homes for under $200,000 a few years ago. I mean, now it's getting to the point, no matter what island I search, you're almost not going to find a single-family home under $300,000, at least not either in an area you want to live or in a condition that you probably want to buy. James Island is going to be cheaper than some of the other areas. Not a bad drive to downtown Charleston. Not a bad drive to Folly Beach. A ton of cool restaurants. There's a good music venue called the Poorhouse or something like that. They have 2 stages. It's outdoor. You can bring your dogs. Little bit more rustic, little bit more rural, but nowhere nearly as much so as Johns Island. I think I'm probably going to be looking at James Island just because Mount Pleasant's going to be out of my price range, as is Isle of Palms, Sullivan Island. I don't really want to be in Charleston. North Charleston isn't bad. I'm going to be considering it. But I'll probably be on James Island or West Ashley more than likely just because it's a little bit more affordable. Then we have Johns Island. Johns Island is where Angel Oak is. very, very rural, not a lot of development over there. You are starting to get more development. It's a little bit further away from things. Like if you're not working on Johns Island, which most of you probably won't be, it is going to be a little bit of a hike probably to get to your workplace. I personally work for myself, so I mean, as long as I have an internet connection and a FedEx office nearby, I could really live wherever. So that's one of the only reasons I'm considering Johns Island. I'm hoping that maybe it builds up or develops a little bit. I think if you're on the east end of Johns Island by, I forget the roadways, 171 or 174, something like that, may not be a bad commute to get over to James Island or even downtown Charleston. But if you're not at the far east end of Johns Island, it's going to be really rough commuting and even going dining and stuff like that. There's really no downtown, no town center, not a ton of shopping or dining, nightlife, whatever. Much, much more so a rural area. A lot of people on like an acre or two with like a trailer there. Just much, much more rural. And then you have Kiowa Island. Most of you, I mean, it's really, really beautiful place, but most of you guys probably aren't going to be wanting to live there. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to ramble and rap a little bit about Charleston real estate. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I don't currently live there yet. I have spent a lot of time down there, but I thought you might like hearing the opinion of an outsider who's in the same shoes as you, thinking about maybe moving down there. A lot of the videos I see about moving to Charleston are either people who, like YouTubers who've already moved there and are just making these videos like showing cool beach scenes in downtown with like music playing in the background but doesn't tell you that much. Or you see real estate agents who I always worry have some motivation like, oh, well, they work in West Ashley, so of course they're saying that's the best area. Or they work on, in downtown Charleston, so they're saying that. I have no motive. Move down there, don't move down there. I don't fucking care. But I'm kind of unbiased, so I thought you might like hearing from me. Like I said, real estate prices are going up, up, and up. Part of me was kind of worried, like, would I be buying into a bubble? But I think, like I said, there's this big migration going from the north to the south. People were trying to take advantage of a cheaper cost of living while being in nicer weather and cooler cities. A lot of baby boomers who are starting to retire. They don't need to be in Chicago or New York or wherever for their jobs, so they're starting to move down south. It's a rule of supply and demand, guys. When more people want to be in an area, it's going to drive prices up. And like I said, I was questioning, like, is this a bubble? Is this going to continue? But at the same point, I think it might just be the new reality. I think real estate is going to continue to appreciate down there. And in many ways, you really can't have the sprawl that you have in other cities unless you want to go way, way far north. So for that reason, like if you want to get into the Charleston, Mount Pleasant, James Island, Folly Beach, Daniel Island type areas, I think the prices are only going to be going up. So I'm probably going to try to pull the trigger. I definitely would like to buy something within the next year. If I find a realtor who I trust and I can make my way down there and kind of get a better lay of the land, if the right deal comes along, I'd be prepared to buy today. As far as like price points for a single family home, on the low end and in an area that's not my ideal area, probably looking at like $230 and above, more than likely $300 and above. Condos and stuff like that, because I'm from Chicago and a lot of my family and friends are up here, I'd like to get a place with 2 or 3 bedrooms so I can have people come down and visit. So for condos, townhomes, etc., I'm probably looking at $220 and up. But yeah, it's just my little rant, my little ramble about Charleston, moving down there, real estate. If you guys have questions or if you want to expand upon anything that I've said, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.